What up, K-Rugs, the Soberdog coming at you. Got a great one for you today. Got Chad Marks from Blood on the Razor Wire TV, his YouTube channel. Incredible story. Got a ton to talk about with Chad. We are going to get into it. Also happens to be my neighbor too, which is awesome. Crazy way we met. He talked about it a little bit yesterday. You got to go check out his channel and see the video we did too. But Chad, what's going on? I'm glad you're here today. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely. Let's jump right into it. What was your life like growing up? Where'd you grow up, and you know, how did you get into any type of trouble or anything going on in your childhood?
Well, I grew up in Rochester, New York, in the inner city. My father was a drug addict, a heroin addict. He was a regular, and I hate to say it like this, but he was a crack smoker that everybody in the neighborhood knew. He was like the famous crackhead. I hate to say it like that, bro, but you know, that's how they referred to my dad. But I didn't really know my dad till I was about 10 or 11, man. He left when I was 3. We went through some stuff, man. He shot at me and my mom with a 12-gauge shotgun. We escaped. We got away.
Yeah.
And then eventually I ended up meeting my dad, probably when I was around 12 or 13, I think, 7th, 8th grade. Grew up, you know, poor, single mother. Got into the drug game at a young age because I was tired of being poor, tired of being broke. And eventually that ended up landing me in federal prison, man, with a 40-year prison sentence.
Wow.
Some of your viewers might be watching like 40 years and how'd he get out? So eventually I became a jailhouse lawyer in federal prison. I was able to help, you know, over 100 people get out, but I was never able to get myself out. But eventually they passed what was called the First Step Act under Donald Trump. And I got out. You know, I petitioned the judge. The judge said that my case was an extraordinary and compelling case. And he felt that some of the changes in law, my rehabilitation, you know, mitigated for an extraordinary and compelling reason. And he reduced my sentence from 40 years to 20. So I did about 18 years straight in federal prison, man.
Wow. That is wild. So to back up, the reason you got into selling drugs, you said, is you were sick of being poor. Did you have other people around that kind of mentored you into it, or did you just jump headfirst into the game?
Well, I had a real good friend, man, when we were kids. His name was Booper, and his uncle Bobby was like a big time, he was a big time drug addict too. But you know, it was like, you know, back then it's kind of like all them rock and roll white people, man. They were like into the Hell's Angel thing, and you know, back then his uncle Cheech was selling cocaine out of the basement. And I mean, big shit. You know, you might remember Chuck Stagnito, all them guys. He got busted with a couple $1 million. So eventually, man, all those people that were selling cocaine became drug addicts, right? They were freebasing back then. And my friend Booper just took over and he started selling bags. And I'm like, damn, man, I want to sell drugs with you. I don't want to be poor and broke anymore. You know, back then he had the Bo Jacksons. I think what were they, triple fat goose jackets back then. And I'm like, damn, when I turn 16, I'm going to want a car. And I was thinking in my head, man, I'm not like the kids from Webster and Irondequoit and Greece. I'm going to have to get my own car because my mother was a single mother on welfare, man. And that's how my, you know, venture into the drug trade started.
Wow. And for those of you watching, Webster is where I'm from. It's one of the suburbs of Rochester, where it's funny, you know, people in the city saying, oh, they got the money out there, which is to an extent true. Definitely people out in Webster with money. But that's very interesting, that the mix and match up there. So how did that progress? How did your dealing progress? Because I know at the end you were top dog in Rochester.
Well, you know, this is what it was. You know, I was 16. I went to state prison when I was 16 for an assault second. I do 2 years in state prison. I make my first parole board. I come home, and then I jump back into selling drugs. But now when I come home, it's not powder cocaine no more. Now it's crack, right? Yeah. Very seldom were people selling powder cocaine. So I started selling crack, man, and it escalated from there, you know, and not proud of the choices that I made. I made some irrational, irresponsible choices, and I deeply regret them. And, you know, it progressed, you know, it was a nonviolent drug crime, but really, man, anytime you're involved in that life, violence comes with it. And, you know, I took all my old friends, you know, all the kids, man, we all grew up poor. And I guess I just had the leadership skills. And I started out small, man. Honestly, I started out with an 8-ball. An 8-ball turned into a quarter ounce. You know, a quarter ounce turned into a half ounce into an ounce into what we would call back then a 62, which was 2 ounces and 6 grams. And then you go to a big 8, which was a 125. And then after that, it was off to the races. The government alleged, which I've been convicted, that I had 5 or 6 crack houses in the city of Rochester. Again, not proud of that, man. You know, I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. And eventually, man, it led to me, you know, going to federal court, getting arrested by the Fed. I got arrested by the state. Go to state court. My wife comes down. She bails me out. I walk out the door, and guess who's there to get me? The federal government. They put me in an expedition. They drive me over to the federal building. I'm in this big place. I'm thinking like, man, this looks like some rich white person's den, you know? like something off Leave It to Beaver or Brady
Yeah.
Bunch. And they start talking about, you're facing 10 to life for the drugs. Then, the federal government doesn't play games. They ended up superseding my indictment. And what that means is they added 16 more counts. So now my
Wow.
mandatory minimum went from 10 to life to 40 to life. I go to trial. I get convicted of what's, 2924C counts, which is possession of a firearm or furtherance of a drug trafficking crime. And some of your people might want to hear this, right?
Yeah.
Because I got 5 years for a 12 gauge shotgun and 25 years for a 22 rifle, running wild with 10 years for the crack cocaine. So I ended up with a 40-year sentence. My mandatory minimum was 40 years. There was no way that the judge could go less. And he imposed a 40-year mandatory minimum. And I leave, go off to federal prison. I was in some of the most dangerous prisons in the country, hands down. I went to USP Big Sandy. That was my first prison. The most dangerous prison at the time in the federal system, and probably one of the most dangerous in the country at that time.
What was it like walking in there in the beginning? Were you prepared for that?
Well, I wasn't necessarily prepared. I mean, people told me, this is how it works when you get there and this and that. So as soon as I walk in, the white prisoners approach me immediately. Hey, man, where you from? Did you tell anybody? Are you a child molester? Then they drop down the rules, man. And the rules are, hey, you got to get your paperwork. You got 30 days to get your sentencing transcript, your docket sheet. And, they want to see that stuff. And they're like, look, I was going to go in a room with a guy from Rochester, right? He was from like over by Clinton Avenue. And they're like, oh, no, who you running with? Are you running with the whites? And for those of your viewers that don't know, man, federal prison is a racially segregated place, especially in maximum security prisons. And I'm like, no, I'm white, man. I run with the whites. And it's not on no racist stuff, man, but that's just how it works in federal prison.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, you're not going in the cell with that dude. That dude, he runs with the blacks. He's from Rochester, New York. And I'm like, oh, shit, I'm from Rochester. So the kid's name was White Boy Hatchet. So eventually they don't put me in there. They go tell the cop what's going to happen. And I'm like, whoa, they're telling the cop what's going to happen. The cop is like, all right, just find a cell for him and let me know what cell he's going into. And that's how it worked, man. My first night or first day or two there, I think it was the first night I was there. A guy from New York actually slaps the cop in the middle of the day room. And all the New York guys surround the cop. And the cop's like, what did I do? And he's touching his face, asking the prisoner, what did I do? And I'm just like, wow, this place is real.
Wow. So the inmates run it. Inmates are running. I mean, not totally run it, but like within what's going to happen is who's living where and who's, kind of moving about. The inmates got a lot of say.
People get killed there all the time, man. People are, stabbed in there, brutally assaulted. The cops, most of the cops are coming in there, man. They're doing their 8 and hitting the gate, man. They don't want no issues. They don't want no problems. You guys are doing 30, 40, 50 years life. You guys sort it out. I'm over here. But I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, prisoners in every prison could run the prison. The cops run the prison because the prisoners allow them to. I mean, people, the prisoners could take over the prison, bro, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But, I don't advocate for that shit. But I mean, when it comes down to it, the cops would run in there with beanbag guns and non-lethal weapons. And, they would get control when they have to. And just like, the Attica riots, eventually they got control, right? So they will get control, but, bad things can happen. And bad things do happen there, man. I've seen people murdered in federal prison. I've seen some wild stuff, man.
What would happen if somebody went in and didn't go along with the rules of kind of, basically you're saying you kind of have to pick a group or a race to run with? And what if somebody wasn't trying to do that, or is that what you have to do to survive? It's just simple as that.
Let me give you an example, right? Let's say, and I talk about this on my YouTube channel. I got a bunch of videos about it, Blood on the Razor Wire TV.
Yeah.
But let's say you come to Big Sandy and you're from Rochester, New York, and you show up. And as soon as you get there, we know you're coming already. You got an 055 number. We get the list from laundry. And the homies are like, hey, this kid's coming in tonight, whatever. He's going to A4. When you come in and you're like, nah, man, I don't really want to run with no one. They'll be like, well, you can do your own thing. But really, it don't work that way, man. It's not in a maximum security federal prison. You're going to be with, the East Coast CARC, the New York dudes, or you're probably not going to be there. They might not stab you, but they'll probably just beat you off the yard, man.
Wow. And how long were you at USP Sandy, and what other spots did you get transferred around to? I know you were at a ton of them. What were some of the most memorable ones?
I was in Big Sandy for a while, man, maybe 2 years. And then I ended up going to USP Lee, right?
Yeah.
USP Lee was a place where it was violent. Bad things happen. I've seen murders at USP Lee. But it was a place where you could do your time, man. If you want to do your time, you could do your time. But things do happen if you get yourself involved in situations. And sometimes you don't have to involve yourself in a situation in a federal prison. Sometimes things just happen. I had a friend in Pollock where, a black dude said, hey, man, First white dude I see, man, I'm killing him. And he did. He killed him. He stabbed the dude, and then the other kid, the white dude, Selly, he went and stabbed the black dude, and he killed him. I actually got a video. I actually play the video footage on one of my videos on my channel of that. So, federal prison is a place that's very dangerous. It's not what people think. It's not Camp Fed, man. Eventually you can work your way down to a lower security prison, which I did. I ended up going to Raybrook, New York, but it was still violent. I mean, were there stabbings there? Yes. Were there killings? I never seen no one get killed there. I've seen a couple people get stabbed. I've seen some people, get brutally beat there. Another guy from Rochester, man. I've seen something happen to him. He was recently arrested in the case with the mayor. I don't really want to, say his name and all that, but I've seen some bad things happen to him. And he was a tough guy in the street. But when you got 10, 15 dudes on you, there's not much you can do. You know what I mean? So I've been to USP Coleman, FCI Raybrook. Eventually I made it to a low security prison. My last 9 months, my motion was granted while I was there, and I got out of prison. Man.
So how did that work? When did you start getting into the law work and looking at your case and really digging in, or getting into other people's legal situations too? How did that come about?
So, after 8 or 9 years, things started to click in my head. Like, man, if they ever change the law, I don't want to, say, hey, you brought parole back and I got a bunch of write-ups for assault and a stabbing over here and a knife over there. So I started to change my life. But I had always been in the law library, bro. I was always fighting for my life from day one, right in the county jail. And it got so frustrating because, I had issues where I knew I was 100% right. And sometimes you can be 100% right and not win. Your Fourth Amendment right could be violated. Your Sixth Amendment right could be violated. And the judges and the lawyers, you pay this one, you pay that one. And at the end of the day, 99% of the time, no one gives a shit, man. You don't win. I mean, some people win, but very, very seldom. So I got into the law right away, man, became a jailhouse lawyer. And, when I finished with my case, my, initial appeal, which I ended up winning, I won a hearing and got remanded and ended up getting screwed later on. But, I was winning. I was a winner. But that's because I dedicated my life to winning. Because if I didn't win, that means I was going to die in prison. And that's how I eventually got out of prison when the law changed, because every day I did something to get out of prison. I don't care if I wrote a senator, if I wrote a motion, if I researched the case, I was doing something every day. So while things were at a standstill and my stuff was pending, I had a guy come to me and say, hey, man, I need help with a 2255, a post-conviction motion. This is when I was in USP Coleman down in Florida. And he was a Cuban dude. I'm like, look, man, he's like, you're always in the law library. I know what you're doing. I said, look, man, I'm going to try to help you. And I end up helping the cat, and we win. I win his case. So after that, man, people started talking about me, and after, I just kept doing cases. I kept winning. And, that's kind of how my legal thing went. And then I started to change my life. It didn't happen overnight, but eventually I started teaching classes in prison. I designed a fast track GED class where every single one of my students, dude, they were in classes for 2 or 3 years, man, and never got their GED. I had one guy from, Dansville, New York, could not get his GED. My fast track class, every one of them dudes got their GED within 87 days. 87 days, bro. Because, a lot of the teachers in there, they don't give a shit, man. No one cares. But I put this fast track GED program together, man, and we banged it out, and all the dudes got their GED. And after that, some of the staff were pissed off because they had these students so long, they fired me. But eventually I would go on to, I know it's crazy. Eventually I would go on to teach, alternative violence project seminars, became a suicide companion in prison. I just did a lot, man. Got a college degree in prison, so.
I wanted to ask you about that suicide companion. Is that where if somebody's suicidal, you'll be their bunkie and kind of make sure they don't do anything that night? Is that how that works?
Well, in federal prison, what they do is they put these guys in a locked cell, right?
Yeah.
They put these vests on them. I call them the G unit vest, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they're butt naked in there, bro. They really got nothing. And really what you do is you sit outside the room and you watch them, make sure they're not going to hurt themselves, man. And, you're not supposed to talk to them, but everybody does, man. We all talk to them. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Look, man. You got to push forward. I try to push a positive thing. Some guys might not talk to them, but, I had dudes, man, that were in there that were absolutely nuts, bro. Threatening me, told me when they get out, they're going to kill me. When they get out of the cell, they'll see me on the compound. But all in all, man, it was something that was close to me, bro. My brother committed suicide, man, when shot himself in the head with a shotgun. So, I was affected by suicide and stuff like that. So I wanted to do it, man. I started to change my life and wanted to help other people, bro. And that's what I do now. I own a paralegal and prison consultant firm. And that's what we do, man. We win cases. Just won a big case for a mob guy out of Brooklyn, Tommy Reynolds. Jimmy Calandra has a YouTube page. Tommy Reynolds was one of his co-defendants. And I did Tommy Reynolds' case. We just won that. I won a lot of big cases, man.
Wow. That's incredible. So within your case, you won a couple, but they railroaded you, screwed you at the end. And then what happened? President Trump changed the law, which opened up the door for you?
So what happens is President Trump, they end up passing the First Step Act, right, under Trump, under the Trump administration. And in there, they changed some of what was called the compassionate release statute. And, there was a couple little glitches in there where, if you can prove to the judge that there's extraordinary and compelling reasons to reduce your sentence, then the judge has the authority to do that. So what I did, I was juggling whether or not I should file that motion or file what was called a Holloway motion. So I filed the Holloway motion, and Judge Larimer uses the words extraordinary in that decision. He says this is an extraordinary case that deserves an extraordinary remedy. And in the First Step Act and in the compassionate release stuff, they use that word extraordinary. And my judge had asked the prosecutor to open the case. He refused to do so. So eventually, I ended up filing a 3582 and or a compassionate release motion, right? Mm-hmm. So when I file that, what happens is former federal prosecutor, John Gleason, the guy who prosecuted Sammy the Bull Gravano and John Gotti, he ends up becoming a federal judge for 23 years, steps down, becomes a lawyer. I mean, he's always been a lawyer, but then he ends up representing me, man. And if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have got out of prison. My judge wanted to let me out, but the prosecution was just nailing it, bro, nailing it home. One of the worst cases you'll ever see. And Gleason came in with his team, man, and that's when I found out what real lawyers were. They came in from New York City with 3-4 lawyers, and they were prepared. They made all kinds of arguments. We had all kinds of hearings, and eventually the judge says, "Look, I think this kid deserves a second chance," and I'm forever grateful, man. The judge gave me a second chance, man. I came home. I got remarried to my ex-wife when I went to prison with 40 years. She had to go her way. I had to go mine. I had 40 years. You know what I mean? But we got remarried.
So you were with her before you got arrested. Give us a little bit of that. Yeah, I know you're kind of talking about it, but like how that played out. That's fascinating.
Okay, so I was married, right, to a girl from Webster. Yeah. We had a pretty good relationship, man. The best relationship I ever had in my life, man. I loved her, cared about her. But I ended up getting arrested. We're together. We're married. I get arrested. I go to prison. I go to county jail, and it's kind of like, look, this is it, man. 2-3 years in, it's like, I'm getting 40 years. I'm getting life. You got to go on with your life. You're a young girl. You're a pretty girl. You got to move on. And we separated, man. We got a divorce while I was in prison. She went on. She had a different life. I get out of prison. We reconnect. We get remarried, and we just had 2 little twin boys, man, in December. So,
wow, congratulations!
Crazy story.
That is so crazy. You guys reconnect. That's wild. Now, why did that lawyer take your case? Did you hire him, or was it something you brought him in, or were you back with your wife at this point? She contacted him. How did you get a hold of this guy?
No, I'm in jail. Me and my wife don't reconnect until after I get out of jail.
Okay.
What happened was there was this defense lawyer named Harlan Protus, right? And when I talked about that Holloway case, Judge Gleason was the guy that did the Holloway case when he was a judge. And what he did was he gave this guy like 60 years. And he asked the prosecutor to open the case and said, look, this guy doesn't deserve 60 years. He's been in prison 20 years. I want to open the case and resentence this guy. He changed his life. He deserves a second chance. And at first the prosecutor said no. It was under, Loretta Lynch, who was the U.S. attorney. She went on to become the attorney general under Obama. And she said no at first. So the judge said, look, I'm telling you, I might have to revisit his case if you don't agree. They eventually agree. He resentences the guy. He gets like 20 years and gets time served, and he goes home. So I write to Harlan Protus because Harlan was Holloway's lawyer. And I'm like, look, man, I really need help, man. This is my situation. He's like, look, I can't help you, but I might have someone that can. So he shoots my paperwork over to Gleason. At the time, he steps down. He's not a federal judge. I talked to them 3 or 4 times, and they say, look, contact us in a year or 2, man. Go to college, get a college degree, do some more programs, and contact us. So I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. I blow it off like, damn, my feelings are hurt, man. Maybe maybe this is my destiny. Maybe I'm never getting out of prison. But eventually, they end up changing that First Step Act. And again, I reach out to Harlan Protus, and he says, look, I'm going to connect you with Judge Gleason again. So he connects me to them. They take my case pro bono, man. And these people are millionaires, probably, dude. Big law firms, does big stuff, not just criminal stuff, but just phenomenal lawyers, man, like top-notch lawyers. They take my case pro bono. They fly in to see me. I get transferred to Youngstown, Ohio. They're flying down there to see me. Just really good people, man, that saved my life. And not just mine, but they probably saved 30, 40 people since then.
Yeah.
They've been cranking them out.
Wow. What was it like when you got released? What was, because you did 18 years, I can't imagine how everything was different when you got out.
So when I walk out of prison, man, at first it's kind of shocking, right? Because let me explain this to you, because this is another crazy part of my case, right? Like I told you, the prosecutor hated me with a passion, bro. So what happens is On the day I'm supposed to get released, my family drives from Rochester, New York to Kentucky. I'm walking out and they call on the walkie-talkie, hey, stop him. There's an appeal. Stop him. The prosecutor waited until the night before my release and filed an appeal, an emergency appeal.
God.
No one knows until that morning. We're all shocked. We all find out in the morning. So, dude, I was probably 30 steps away from walking out of prison. They turn me around, they take me back. And at that time, they had me in this special unit because if you were getting released, it was right when COVID was cranking, April, May, June. So they take me back in this unit, dude, where there's no TV, there's no phone, there's nothing, dude. And now I'm like, wow, man, I'm going through it. But eventually my lawyers filed an appeal back, and 30 days later, I end up getting released. The Court of Appeals agrees that I should be released. I get released. So that morning when I'm walking out, I'm like nervous, bro. I'm thinking, man, I hope this doesn't happen again, I was so close yet so far away, man. And it was devastating, dude. One of the most devastating things that ever happened in my life. I think it was even worse than getting sentenced to 40 years. To think you're about to walk out of prison after 18 years and they turn you around at the gate.
That's brutal. The prosecutor did that too. That's just dirty.
A lot of them are cold-hearted, brother.
Yeah.
So they return me back in there. 30 days later, I get out. My family comes to get me, dude. I walk out and I'm just like, go. I get in the car and I'm like, go, man, go.
Go.
And I'm thinking in my head, I at least want to eat a real pizza before anything happens. And I'm thinking in my head, they're gonna follow me. They're gonna get me. Something's gonna go wrong here. But I just want to eat a real pizza, dude. Ain't that crazy? That was like what was on my. I want a real pizza.
So New York boy, you want that good pizza.
So eventually, I get out, but things weren't easy, man. I got a little PTSD. I've been stabbed in prison. I've been hit in the back of the head with some rocks and a net bag in prison. I wasn't always a nice guy, before I changed my life. I was in the mix, dude. I was in the mix of prison politics and, I guess you could say a troublemaker at times, Like I didn't go out looking for it, but I didn't refuse it either if it showed up. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I was ready at all times, bro. Because there was a point in time when I didn't really care if I lived or died, bro. I had 40 years, man. I didn't have the balls to take myself out. So if someone else did it, man, in the heat of the moment, in battle, then okay, whatever. Yeah. But then eventually, like I said, I changed my thought process, man. Something clicks up here. Sometimes it happens when you're 24. Sometimes it happens when you're 28. Sometimes it happens when you're 35. Sometimes it happens when you get a life sentence. So, eventually, man, I changed my mind thought. And I came out here with a plan, dude. I said, I'm putting this paralegal and prison consultant firm together, which I did. Freedom Fighters Paralegal and Prison Consultant. I had a book, which actually sold out on the first day on Amazon. That's my book.
Nice. Blood on the Razor Wire, right on Amazon. I'll put a link in description too for it. Awesome.
People can read the first 3 chapters for free. I promise you will not be disappointed. People read the book in like a day and a half, and they're like, dude, I couldn't put it down.
What made you start a YouTube channel?
So the YouTube channel is, a dude had interviewed me that had a YouTube channel, and my plan in prison was, I'm going to get out and go into these schools, and I'm going to talk to these kids, and I'm going to teach GED on, to a whole bunch of people on the computer, man. GED.com. I can do it because I taught it in prison. And then when this dude interviews me and stuff, and I'm like, and he's telling me about, I'm like, damn, bro, maybe this would be the outlet because you can't get in schools at the time because of COVID-19, right? Mm-hmm. So that's how I started the YouTube channel. The mission is to save kids from life imprisonment and premature death in the streets. And that's because we live in a dangerous area, dude. We live in a place where we had more murders than any other city in the country last year per person. It was on Fox News 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, that was the outlet. But we do talk about violence on the channel, right? Yeah. And that's what grabs people. And that's what brings them in. We do talk about prison on there. And then we give them a message. I try to give a message in every video, bro.
That's awesome. That's incredible. Well, Chad, I appreciate all your time. I appreciate everything. Well, one last time, tell everyone exactly where they could find you, your book, everything. Give it all the links, everything.
Okay, so you can definitely check us out on that YouTube channel, Blood on the Razor Wire TV. I talk about how to order the book on there. You can get it through Amazon. You can get an autographed copy through us, through the email that's on, the YouTube channel, Blood on the Razor Wire, or freedomfighterspc@gmail.com. Check us out on YouTube, man. I promise you won't be disappointed. And, check out the book. Go read the first 3 chapters on Amazon for free. And if you like it, go ahead and order it, man. And just want to thank you for bringing me on. And, the thing that you're doing with this whole Soberdogs and pushing rehabilitation, man, it's a wonderful thing, man. And I appreciate what you're doing too, bro.
Thank you so much. Right back at you. Same to you. I was just reading your message, saving kids from like you said it a minute ago, from getting that life in prison, from making the same mistakes you did. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you everyone for watching. Go check out all of Chad's stuff. You won't be disappointed.